Welcome to this microfocus video presentation. My name is Vikram Goyal, and I'm Product Manager for Zenworks Configuration Management. In today's video, I'm going to talk about modern management of Windows devices using Zenworks. In Zenworks 2020 Update 2, we are bringing in modern management of Windows 10 devices. So this management of Windows 10 devices is via an MDM agent, which is built into all Windows 10 and going on forward Windows 11 devices. So this agent can be used to manage devices in an agentless manner, which means that you don't really require an external agent to be installed on these devices for managing some aspects of the management. So this is a vast set of the capabilities, but we can't really get them to you in a single shot. So what we plan to do is that we plan to surface these capabilities in a phased manner over many releases. So we started out with the introduction of the modern management of Windows 10 devices in Zenworks 2020. And since then, we have been building on the top of it and building in more and more capabilities. And I'm happy to say that with Zenworks 2020 Update 2, it is now possible to manage full lifecycle of Windows 10 devices with a specific focus on a remote worker use case, which maybe is very pertinent in current scenario, where a lot of the organization's employees are not residing within the organization itself, but are working from home. So we believe that the kind of the capabilities which have been exposed, which are coming in, which are there as part of Zenworks 2020 Update 2, it becomes much easier to provision and manage the devices which are available with such remote workers. So let's start with that. What are these capabilities are? So let's start with enrollment of Windows 10 devices via MDM. So with Zenworks 2020 itself, we actually brought in features where it was possible to deploy Windows Pro to enroll devices in via MDM by the deployment of Windows provisioning package. So essentially, this was a Windows provisioning package or something, a small package which can be built in using a Windows Designer tool. And the devices can be enrolled just by executing this particular package. So this package can be embedded as part of the imaging, or if the device is already enrolled with Zenworks Agent, you can actually put it in a bundle and just have it executed on the device. You can also push this package through a group policy, or in the worst case, right, you can always put it on a server and have your users download it and execute it. This is something which can be very suitable for scenarios where the bulk enrollment of the devices may be required. And it is also suitable for the scenarios, let's say, where you don't really have an Azure AD-based environment. So to deploy this package and to then subsequently manage the devices via MDM, you don't really require Azure AD. So if you're an eDirectory user, or if you're using Active Directory, you can just go ahead and make use of this particular package and enroll your devices into Windows 10. In this release, what we have done is that we are bringing in another way of enrolling the Windows 10 devices, and that is Autopilot enrollment. So what is Windows Autopilot? So Windows Autopilot is a technology which is offered by the Microsoft to set up and pre-configure new devices. So in this scenario, what happens is that a device vendor will upload a list of the devices which have been purchased by you directly into a Microsoft portal. And once these devices appear over there, you can essentially set that, okay, you can assign to these devices a set of a profile which will dictate what will happen to these devices on the first boot. And at a time when these devices are then can be shipped directly from the vendor to your end users in their homes. And what happens is that when the end users receive these devices and start them up, from the boot time itself, the setup process becomes customized. And as a part of the setup process itself, the device will become enrolled into Zenworks without you needing to do anything at all. And once a device is enrolled into Zenworks, then you can obviously deploy many things and you can manage in the way you want. So the key thing is that to do for this particular set of the enrollment, you do require Azure AD. So Once you actually have these devices set up and managed via the Windows 10 MDM, it is also now possible that you can also install ZenWorks Agent on the top of it. So this is essentially a dual management of the Windows 10 devices. And what we have done in this release is that we have brought in a new policy, which is ZenWorks Agent Deployment Policy, which can deploy ZenWorks Agent on MDM-only devices. And once the agent is installed, then it essentially behaves like a fully managed device, and you can do whatever you want to do. What you can do with a non-MDM device, the same things can be performed on a device, which is now which will act as a Windows 10 MDM plus ZenWorks Agent. And if you see here in this particular snapshot, there's a slide view here. If you say ZenWorks Agent version comes as NA, and when it is enrolled via both, you can actually go ahead and see that there's a ZenWorks Agent which is installed on the device. To bring a method to all of these new features which are there, what we have also done is that we have essentially introduced a new page, which is Getting Started with Modern Management. It provides you a set of the steps which you will need to do for the setup, install, and to perform some simple use cases. So this was all about the enrollment and getting started. But in this release, we have also brought in capability where you can deploy applications onto Windows MDM only devices. So that's essentially in the form of the MSIs. So in this release, it is possible to take a MSI and have it installed on a Windows MDM device. And it is in the form of a bundle, and we are just shortly going to see as to how this can be. We also have a newer type of the capability, which is Windows MDM CSP bundle. And what it does is it actually helps you provision features which are yet not surfaced in ZenWorks back to this Windows MDM device. And the way we actually do it is that all the commands and all the configurations which are honored by a Windows 10 device via MDM, they are actually sent to it in a form of a CSP, which is essentially a syntax. It's an XML-based syntax. And what we have done is that we have provided an interface where you can essentially type in this syntax, and once it is done, the ZenWorks will take care that it gets enforced on a device. Lastly, what we have also got is that we have provided out a support for the regular device management actions. So this starts out from a refresh, unenroll, retire, unretire, and delete, and so that you can essentially manage the whole life cycle of a device. All across the things, what we have tried to ensure is that you end up managing a device and not an individual agent, because that's what really the thing is all about. So at this point of the time, let's take a look at a short demo of how all of these features we have built in ZenWorks 2020 Update 2, how they all come together and how they can benefit you. So here is the ZCC. And if you go over here, so you will notice that earlier this tab here, this particular link used to be mobile management, but we have essentially changed it to modern management, because this essentially gives you getting started for all the different ways you can manage a device using the modern management capabilities, which is essentially via MDM. So here, if you will see that you have a newer page for managing Windows 10 devices, and as I mentioned, here you have different use cases which you can walk through. So you can see what you need to do, configure ZenWorks servers to communicate with the Windows services. So there are things which you will need to do. Here you can also find out that, okay, how you can set up and enroll non-Azure AD devices, which is essentially through the provisioning package. You can do how you can enroll and manage Azure AD devices using Autopilot, and so on and so forth, and also about how you can do the deployment of the ZenWorks agent and the applications. So at this time, let's take a quick look at an application bundle. So there is a new type of the bundle which we have introduced, which is a Windows MDM bundle. And it is with this type of the bundle, you can package out a MSI application for deployment onto Windows 10 devices via MDM. So what we try to ensure is that you essentially have the same set of the paradigm which you have been familiar with, and it should not really involve any kind of a learning curve. So just like any other Windows bundle which you have till now worked with, we can just go ahead and upload an MSI file over here, and we'll fill in the rest of the stuff. So here what I've done is that I have essentially taken a Notepad++ MSI, and I have created a bundle out of it. And more importantly, what I've done is just like any other thing, I have taken this and assigned it to a set of the Windows 10 MDM folder. Another thing to note is that we have brought in a newer set of the registration rules and the so you can actually identify and put these devices in their respective set of the folder. So I here have a newer criteria which talks about the Azure AD tenant ID, and excuse me, and all the devices which are having this particular tenant ID will go and sit in this particular Windows 10 MDM folder. In order that you can communicate, the ZenWorks can communicate with Azure AD, we have also brought in something called an Azure AD MDM application. And as a part of this application, you will need to configure application in the Azure AD portal and provides this detail back over here in ZenWorks, which will essentially ensure that the ZenWorks can talk to Azure AD. And this is primarily for the purpose of the Autopilot enrollment. Okay, so at this time, let's take a quick look at how this enrollment workflow and subsequent things can work out. So here is my device, and this is a device which has just assumed that this is a device which I've just received from directly from the vendor. And when I open it, this is a screen which I will be greeted with. So what I will do is I'll start out with walking through the steps over here. So once I will choose the lane, and then I will choose the keyboard. I'll skip the second keyboard layout. And at this point at the time, all the Windows 10 devices, what they will do is that they will contact back with Microsoft and find out that, okay, is there something which is set up for me? Now for this device, what has happened is that this was a device which has just came in from the vendor, and there is a portal which is available on the Microsoft site in which you can specify the characteristics of the things which will happen with this device. So let's take a quick look at this particular portal. So this is the business store for the Microsoft, and if you see over here, I have my device which is available over here, and here you have a capability where you can specify that what kind of the screens will be available as part of this particular device. So here I can go and edit a profile, and I can say that, okay, which screens I want and which screens I don't want. So I can choose to skip the privacy screen. And more importantly, it is possible to even disable the local admin account creation on the devices. So at this time, let's switch back to the device. On this device, the end user can just sign in with their Azure credentials. So that's what I'm going to do. So once I sign in with the Azure AD credentials, what will happen is that the Azure will recognize that this device is enrolled with your organization, and then it will essentially pass on the address of your ZenWorks server back to this device. And as and when the device reaches these ZenWorks servers, it will be presented with this terms of the use policy. So this is a new screen which has been again coming in as part of ZenWorks 2020 Update 2. And within ZenWorks Control Center, there's a new policy which we have introduced, which will control that what is the text which you see on this particular screen. So if I go to the policies over here, I can see there's a terms of the use policy. And as a part of the terms of use policy, I can go and specify my terms of use and the text which you're going to see here. Since your end users may not be using one language across different things, you will have an option to provide more set of the language. In this case, what I've provided out here is a Russian. So going back to the device, if you see here, I do have an option where I can switch to Russian if I want, or I can continue with English. I'll go ahead and accept it. And at this point of the time, the device will get enrolled into ZenWorks, and it will skip the rest of the panes which may come in. So at this time, the device should be enrolled back with ZenWorks, and this is something which we can verify on the device itself by going to access work in the school setting. So over here, it tells me that it is connected to the Azure AD. And if I go and click on the info section, it will tell me that it is managed by ZenWorks, and it would also tell me there's an application which is already installed. So I can just verify. And as I can see that the Notepad++, which I had assigned and created, is already installed on the device. At this point of the time, it is actually possible to even, as I mentioned, to have this device dual managed by the virtue of installing ZenWorks agent on it. And for this very purpose, we actually have another policy which can be deployed onto such devices. So going back into the ZCC, if you will see, we have a new policy, which is an agent deployment policy. And as a part of this policy, you can specify that which is the ZenWorks agent, what type of the ZenWorks agent you want to deploy onto devices. And in this case, what I have done is that I have assigned this policy to this particular folder, which means that any device which is going to get registered via the Windows 10 MDM will automatically get ZenWorks agent installed on it as part of the enrollment itself. So over here, you can see that the device is come in, and right now it is managed only by the ZenWorks Windows 10 MDM agent, and there's no agent installed. But since we had assigned that agent to be installed on the deployment, the agent installation will happen shortly after the device is set up. So let's wait for a while. Shortly thereafter, you can see that the ZenWorks agent has been installed on this device. In the ZCC, we can see that now this device is being managed both by the ZenWorks agent, also by the MDM agent. At this point of the time, what we can do is that we can actually install further set of the applications on this device. So let's see this Windows 10 MDM CSP bundle. So this is another newer type of the bundle, and which, as I mentioned, can be used to deploy Windows CSP configuration service provider commands back onto the devices. And this can primarily be the capabilities which are not yet surfaced in ZenWorks right now. So as a part of the CSP, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hide the restart button on the device. And again, this is just like any other bundle, and I'm going to assign it to a device. I also have a Google Chrome application, which is another MDM based MSI application, and a normal web application, which is which will be installed by the ZenWorks agent. And if you see over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all three of them and I'll just straight away assign to the device, and ZenWorks will take care of it, that which applications get imposed by which set of the agent. So here they are assigned. At this time, since I've just done the assignment, what I can do is I can go and refresh the device so that these assignments can reach the device and these things can be executed on the device. So I'll go ahead and do a refresh workstation quick task. So again, when I do this quick task, what ZenWorks will do, it will refresh both the ZenWorks agent and the MDM agent back on the device. So from your perspective, you're just refreshing the device and you're really shielded from day-to-day task of managing the individual agents. So we'll go ahead and start the quick task. So let's go and check the device. So if I go in device, I already see that the Google Chrome application has been installed on it. And at this point of the time, if I go see, the restart button has been hidden on the device. Lastly, if I want, I can just go and delete the device from my so. So to summarize, in this release, we have got support for the Windows Autopilot. We have support for the dual management of the devices using both ZenWorks agent and MDM agent. We have also got the MSI application capability deployment, and you can also deploy CSPs for the additional capabilities. And all in all is something which you can do by managing device just as a device and not worrying about the individual agents altogether. Thank you for watching this video presentation. This concludes this video.